Hi there, and welcome to today's Kingston Library Crafternoons. I'm Fran, and I'm going to be talking you through the absolute basics of knitting. I've started knitting about 2 years ago, and I really enjoy it. It's just a really easy, relaxing hobby, and at the end of it you have a lovely product that you can give to someone else or have for yourself. This video is not going to be for you if you've ever knitted before. It's for the absolute beginner. So if you've never held a pair of knitting needles before in your life, this is the video for you. I'm just going to talk you through the equipment and basically what you need to do to get yourself started, and then show you how to get yourself started on the absolute first techniques you need to know on how to knit, and then you can begin. And I'm just going to show you a few examples as well of what it will look like. So first of all, you will need your needles. So these are 10mm needles, and these are the first needles I ever got when I first started knitting. So you can actually get needles at any length, any thickness and any material that you can really think of. You can get wooden ones, metal ones, but I've just got these basic plastic ones, and these honestly they do the job, and I don't need any other ones, to be honest, except for the thickness. The thickness is the real thing that stands apart and makes a difference in your knitting, but these are the on the thicker side. I say if you're beginning, the thicker the needles, the easier you'll be able to get started, and the thicker the wool as well. So I'd say start yourself off with some thicker needles. These are 10mm ones, but you can get ones even thicker than this if you wanted to start off super easy, or you can get ones extremely thin as well. But yes, these are the needles I recommend to start yourself off with. That's the first step of basic equipment that you need. You'll also need a crochet hook. You won't need this until the end of your project, but you still will need one, so you can get yourself one of those. You'll also need a pair of scissors, which I expect you'll already have. And last but not least, the wool. So I'll just bring this over here to show you. So wool you can get in any thickness, any colour, any level of softness, and any material that you can set your mind to, really. This here is 100% acrylic, so it's not actual animal wool, but you can get alpaca wool, other kinds of wool. I think you can even get wool with silk in it, so it's extremely soft and silky. But this is, as I say, is 100% acrylic, and it's very soft. It does the job. The wool is really warm, and the colours are lovely and bright. These three wools here I got from a brand called Paintbox Yarns, which I got on a website called lovecraft.com. Lovecraft.com is where I go to get all of my wool and all of my knitting equipment. You can get endless patterns there, all different kinds of wool equipment, and if you're knitting or crocheting or other crafts as well, that's just a great place to start. This wool, the name of the thickness of this wool is just called chunky, very simple, chunky wool. You can get wool that's extremely thin or much thicker. You can get wool that's probably about that thick, and you can even use your arms to knit with it instead of the needles. But this is just very standard size wool that you can use if you're a beginner. It's the wool that I like to use because what you come out with comes out very warm and cuddly. With thinner wool and thinner needles, the project comes together much slower, and it's much more fiddly. You'll have to use a lot more concentration on it, and it takes a lot longer. So I'd say start off with chunky wool if you want to become a knitter. You can also have super chunky, but chunky wool is a good way to start off. I'm going to show you the very basics of how to get started with knitting and how to do your very basic knit stitch. And I'm going to show you a few examples of what that looks like as well. So I'm just going to get rid of these other colours here and start off with our yellow wool for casting on. So casting on is when you're literally just putting the wool onto your needle and getting yourself started. So I'll just get myself a nice length of the wool here. So Lovely. So leave a nice amount of length at the end because you want to be able to weave it in at the end of your project depending on what you want to make. So I leave a good few inches left. I'm making squares. I'll show you what I'm actually making. My main project at the moment that I'm making with my knitting, I'm making squares to eventually make a large patchwork quilt. So I've got lots of squares, all different patterns, all different colours, and these are all with chunky wool. And at the end, once I've got about 100 or so, I'll weave them all together using the ends. And at the end of it, I hope to have a lovely, thick, warm, colourful patchwork blanket that will last forever. And that's the thing about knitting, it really does last forever. And this also is a scarf. I've made about a dozen scarves since I started knitting. I tend to just make them and give them to anyone I know for Christmas. They're a very easy Christmas gift. And it's very thoughtful because you've made it yourself from scratch, and it'll also be a unique item. No one else in the world will have that particular item. This is a scarf I made for my brother a couple of Christmases ago, with the very basic knit stitch for the green, and then a slightly different stitch for the grey. As you can tell by the colours, he's a Slytherin, but we won't judge him for that. And then I've got the little tassels at the end there. So that is just a really lovely, as you can see, it's lovely and soft, lovely and thick, and it does the job for a nice scarf. So I'm just going to pop that over there. So back to the casting on. So I'll get my wool back here. Where's the end gone? Here it is. There we go. Okay. So yes, you leave a nice length at the end. And the very first thing you need to do is make a loop. So just like that. It can be a smaller loop than that. So just like that. And then what you have to do is hold it with your fingers, and with your other hand you reach through and grab the wool that's attached to the ball of wool, and you just pull it through, and there we go, we've got a slip knot. If you want to see me do that again, just rewind the video. It is quite tricky. Casting on, as it's something you do only once in each project, it can be tricky to remember. I sometimes need to remind myself as well what to do, but you just need to make that simple slip knot, and then you take one of your needles and you just slip it on there. You can tighten it on, but I wouldn't yet completely, just because you're going to have to put your other needle through there in a moment. So you just hold that there in your left hand. If you're left-handed and you feel more comfortable holding this in your right hand, you can do that, but I'm right-handed, so I'm just going to hold it like this. So you just hold it like this with the end wool just on the right there. You're not going to be using that anymore. That you can just leave that hanging until you're finished with your knitting. And on the left here is the wool that's attached to the ball. So you're going to take your other knitting needle and you're just going to thread it through this hole like that. So your needles are crisscrossed there. That's what it looks like from the top. So you just push it through there. And now this is the point where you can tighten it a little bit more. Oops, my knitting has fallen off. There we go. So yes, so now you take the line of wool that's attached to the ball. Just trying to position this easier for you to see. Okay, so then you take the line of wool that's attached to the ball and you simply wrap it over the back needle, the needle on the back, the one in your right hand. So I'll just do that again. You just wrap it over there like that. Okay, so once you've done that, this is the most complicated bit of casting on. So you, as I say, you can rewind it again. I'm going to do it a few times just so you see. So this wool is attached. You simply pull your needle through and pull like this, and then hook that onto your needle, tighten it off, and there we go. So we've got our first couple of stitches there. I'll do that a few more times just so you can see. They've overlapped each other a little bit, but that's okay. Tying them on a bit. So you've got your first couple of stitches on your needle. I'll do that a couple more times just so you see. So you just pop your needle through there, As it's getting tighter, it gets more difficult to do this, but you just push it in like this. Take the wool, wrap it around the needle on the back, and hold this wool with your right hand, don't let go of it. Pull this needle back through and you'll see there is a loop there. Hold onto that loop, pull it, and then hook this on to your needle. Tie it off, and now we have another stitch. And there we go. 3 stitches there. I'll do a few more in there at the back. Wrap it around, hold on to it, begin to pull your needle back, keep this wool here attached, pull and hook it on. There we go. It gets harder as you go because it's getting tighter, because it's getting more attached to the needle, which is what you want. You can do as many of these casting on stitches as you want. It depends on how wide you want your project to be. It can be as many as 40 or 50. Really depends on what you're making, but I'll only do a few just for the purpose of showing you what you actually have to do to knit. So I'll just quickly do a few more of those just to quickly show you. Sorry if the angles are a little bit strange. I'm filming with my phone and I'm sat at a desk, so the angles and the lengths of the needles are not hugely useful, but hopefully I can show you the basics. Okay, so that will do for now, I think. Just push these back onto the length of the needle. Here we go. So we've got 8 stitches here, I think. Yes, we've got 8 stitches. So these are the very first stitches. So you have these here. Again, the one that's here, that's attached to the end, this one that's attached to the end, you can just leave this. Try not to mistake it for the one that's attached to the ball, because if you use that and you knit that into your knitting, and then you're in a bit of trouble there. So the one that you need is always the one at the front, the one that's attached to the ball. Always try and make sure of that before you continue knitting. So I'm going to show you the very basic knit stitch. There are dozens of different stitches you can do in a dozen different combinations to create different patterns, but I'm going to show you the very first absolute basic knit stitch just to get you started. It comes out looking really pretty. I'll show you what it looks like when I've done, but I'm just going to show you how to do it first. So again, you hold this one in your left hand and your other needle in your right hand, and we're going to do almost the same thing that we were doing before, which is you just push the needle in between sort of your first stitch and your second stitch, and you push it through like that. So it looks like this. So you just pushed it essentially right through that loop that's there. And what you do is you take the wool that is attached to your ball and you wrap it around the needle at the back, just like that. You begin to pull this needle out again, and again you keep this here, and then you pull it onto the needle on your right hand. There. So that's essentially all you have to do. I'll do it again with the rest to show you what you have to do. So then make sure you're keeping a firm grip on these, because you don't want them to slip off the needles and then you've got yourself in a world of trouble. So again, you just push the needle in the back of the stitch like this. You wrap your wool around the needle on the back, keep hold of it, push it up like this, and then off. So it's on the needle on the right hand side. It looks a bit loose and a bit funny at the beginning like this, but don't worry, as you keep going the pattern will develop and it will begin to look really, really great. So then back, wrap around, out, up and off. Push it in the back, wrap around, down, up and off. Hopefully getting the hang of this now. So push it up, wrap it around, down, up and off. In, around, down, up and off. Nearly at the end of our first row. In, around, down, up and off. And we're at our last one, so we push it in, wrap it around, down, up and off. So there, now it's all on our needle on our right hand. You will probably get a big loop like this, but don't worry, it will knit itself in to the pattern eventually, so don't you worry. So this is what it looks like at the beginning. And this is just the very beginning of how you begin to knit. As you go doing more rows, it will build and build and build and build. But this is what the end will look like with these sort of loops. But don't worry about this big loop at the end. This always happens, and it will just sort of gradually make its way in, and the rest of the ends of the rows it will tighten up. So don't worry about that. That will be fine. I'll do one more row just to show you, in case the angles of the way I'm filming this isn't great. So with this, now both ends of this wool are together, so you, as I say before, you really have to make sure you know which one is which. So the one that's at the end I'm just going to throw away at the back, so I'm not using it by mistake. And I'm going to keep the one I want to use in my hand. So you transfer the knitting, you're always knitting from the one in your left hand to the one in your right hand, just to make that easier. So I'm holding on to my wool, so I'm never getting mixed up, and so I'm never picking up the wrong string of wool. So knitting back, around, down, up and off. There we go. Up, around, down, up and off. So yes, with knitting there are so many different stitches you can do, so many patterns. I might show you the purl stitch, which is the next one you usually learn. It's not complicated, so don't worry yourself, and if you'd rather just continue on with this knit stitch, then you can. There's not a problem at all. I'll do this last couple. As you can see, I'm doing it quite fast now just because that's what I'm used to doing. I just want to get to the end of the row so I can show you the next bit. Okay, so let me just pull that up. There we go. Try not to get yourself tangled like I am. Right, here we go. So that's what 2 rows looks like. It will eventually build and build and build. And what you'll end up with when you're just doing that knit stitch on your own is this. So this is one of the first things I ever knitted. I'm using this lovely grey wool, and you can see these horizontal loops, and that is just what it looks like when you're just knitting and knitting and knitting using the basic knit stitch. That's what the finished product will look like. And it's very nice. It feels very soft, and it's a pattern that just feels nice to touch, and it looks the same on the other side as well. So that's what happens. You see these interwoven loops. So that is what that looks like. I shall also show you the purl stitch, which is almost exactly the same as the knit stitch, but is basically one step slightly different. So just getting that tight. So what you do is, instead of popping your needle out the back, you're doing the opposite. So you're just inserting it at the front there. So it's crisscrossed, but with the one on the right at the front. So then you simply take your wool, wrap it over the needle the front way, and then it's down, up and off. So it's essentially the opposite of the knit stitch. The purl stitch is doing it the front way instead of the back way. So you just pop it in the front, wrap the wool around, down, up the back and off. So that's what purling is. And you can use the knit stitch and the purl stitch in many different combinations in order to make lovely patterns. You can make stripes, you can make a lovely ribbed pattern, which I'll show you in a moment. And the way different stitches pull together to create different patterns is really lovely, and you can use them in any sort of combination. I once did it so the stitches came off in a diagonal line, which I made for my colleague last Christmas. Let's do these last two. Oops, there we go. Last one. There we go. So, you won't see an immediate difference at the moment, but you will see that those wiggly loops, horizontal loops, are beginning to form. That's what we're doing from our knit stitch. Now we've done a purl stitch, it will begin to look slightly different. So you can see there are some vertical loops. So the knit stitch creates the horizontal loops and the purl stitch creates the vertical loops. I'll just show you here on my purple square. So you can see here there are alternating stripes of the purl stitches, the vertical loops, and the knit stitches where are the horizontal loops. And it's reversible, so it's the reverse on each side. So as I said before, you can alternate in however many ways. 5 purl stitches, 5 horizontal knit stitches, and it comes together in a pattern somewhat like this. There are obviously lots of other stitches as well, but you really don't need anything more than those two. If you want to create different patterns, you can alternate them in as many different ways as you can think of. You could even do one row as knit and one row as purl to create alternating stripes, kind of like the scarf I made for my brother. You can see here with the green there's a line of horizontal and a line of vertical as it goes on, because I alternated by which row I was doing. And that is what this would eventually look like if I continued like this with one row of knit and one row of purl. But as you're a complete beginner, you can just use the knit stitch. It's the easiest and simplest one. The purl stitch is almost exactly the same, and it comes up with this almost completely reversed image there. But so that is essentially how to knit your very first basic stitches. That is really all I have to show for you today for the absolute basics. I could show you in another video how to cast off, which is how to seal off the end once you're finished. I may do another video at some point later showing that with what else I'm working on at the moment. I can show you how to cast off if that's something you'd like. But that is essentially how to knit. That's what you end up with. Don't worry about the ends. The ends always look a bit loopy, but it does tighten up as you go, so don't worry too much. And as I said before, you notice the big loop at the end. That's gone now. It does disappear. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's very satisfying and easy to knit, and you can get lots of knitting books from us at the library. This is one that I borrowed from the library before lockdown. I'm a massive Harry Potter fan, so I'm looking forward to trying my hand at some of these things. But you don't need patterns so much if you know what you want to make. Like I wanted to make this Slytherin scarf for my brother. You can just alternate between grey and green, or whatever colours you like. If you want to make a stripy scarf, thin stripes as you like, or massive stripes, or you can just have it all in one big colour. You know, the world is your oyster. You can make exactly what you want. And as I said before, that means that will be the only thing of its type in the world, because it will be totally unique because you made it. And that's the most satisfying thing about knitting. You made it, it's yours, and it's unique to you. And it all starts from this. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know if you enjoyed. Do you knit? Would you like to start knitting? Would you like any other knitting videos? Let us know. And we hope to see you soon for some more craftiness. Bye.